Hello students, this is Mr. Raphael. I want to talk to you about your historical fiction story. I have here The Birth of a New Nation. I have the first 250 words of the story here. And I just want to talk about how the opening does a really good job of establishing the historical context. And by establishing a historical context, what I mean by the setting of the story is revealed right away. We know where and when the story is taking place. So let's look at some of the things the writer does here to establish this historical context. Right away, there's certain language, there's dates, there's proper nouns, there's names of places, there's names of issues, there's a description of events that are happening. All of this creates that historical context. Notice right here it says life in the 13 American colonies. Well, that takes us back to the 1700s. Here's a specific date. I mention an issue here, open conflict between British forces and patriots. Okay, I'm giving the reader a sense of that there's already a problem in my story. I get more specific here, April 19th, 1775. I cite an event right before the one I'm going to be talking about in my own story. And then I let the reader know that this tension has gotten really thick. It's a very tense time right now. Okay. Then if we move down, right here it says the stage was set. It was time for us to declare independence from the British Crown. This one sentence lets the reader know what this story is going to be about. Can the colonists finally come to an agreement to declare independence from Britain? This story is going to show how Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Ben Franklin and others tried to convince other delegates to finally declare independence, and we're going to see how that happens here. If we continue down, at this point I start talking about the main character. Now notice that this story is told in the first person point of view, so the word I is used. So shortly I'm going to have to tell the reader who I is. You can't keep that a secret. You have to reveal that in the beginning of your story. So that's why I arrived in Philadelphia on June 7, 1776. Again, I want you to notice how historical information appears throughout the story. I give a specific location, Philadelphia. I give a specific date. Now I say who I am. When you write your story, your characters have to be specific people. They can't just be a boy, a girl, a man, a woman. The characters in stories have roles. They have identities, and you have to make that stuff clear to the reader. So I said here that he was a delegate, and he was dispatched to the Second Continental Congress. Okay, this is a real group. This is an important group of patriots that met, and they were meeting to try to declare independence from Britain. Where were they meeting? Not just in a building. There was a specific building that they met in. When I did my research, I found out that it was this Pennsylvania State House. Today, this building is called Independence Hall. There's a little description of what the building looks like. Okay? Now, you could also think of this opening as where I give some of that nonfiction information. I give some of the history. And just be careful that when you do this, it doesn't sound too much like an article. You still want it to feel like a story. Okay? But down here, this is really where my story starts beginning. I really get into storytelling through the use of dialogue. And I want you to pay attention to a couple of things with the use of dialogue. One, when you write the dialogue, make sure that this is a good opportunity for you to give a little bit more information about your main character, but also to talk about the issues that are in the story and show the conflicts that are in the story. So when my narrator walks into the building, somebody refers to him as Tom. Okay? So I'm already giving him an identity, and then as we move through the dialogue, we learn that the Tom is Thomas Jefferson. So now we know Thomas Jefferson is the man who is narrating the story. Notice that there are specific references to other historical characters, John Adams and Richard Henry Lee. Okay? For the readers that don't know who Richard Henry Lee is, I use dialogue as an opportunity to give a little bit more information about him. Thomas Jefferson knows him. Thomas Jefferson worked with him in Virginia. So I just use this dialogue here to say that he was a fellow radical from Virginia. And remember, during colonial times, the radicals were the people that were uh, they were most willing to go to war and shed blood to get what they wanted. And then John Adams speaks here, and he lets us know what's going to be happening in the upcoming scene. This is a really effective use of dialogue. If you write dialogue well, the reader will have a clear sense of what's going to happen next in the story. So when John Adams says Henry's presenting a formal resolution calling for America's independence from Britain, we know that that's going to come up. This is going to be the first effort of these radicals to try to convince the other delegates to declare war on Britain. And you know in a story that your main character is not successful on the first try. So on this first attempt to get agreement from the other delegates, we know that they're not going to be successful. Okay? And then we have to continue to read the story to see how other things unfold. Okay? So there's a lot happening in your opening. I invite you to watch this video more than once. And I invite you to read this opening and any other openings to historical fiction you find that you think are well written, and just try to include some of those same elements in your own writing. All right? So write on, writers, and good luck.